We've always been footy's blue-collar battlers, sons of the Scray, fighting for the people of the western suburbs. The Footscray Footy Club joined the VFL in 1925, and it took us 29 long years to reach the top of the mountain. Our 1954 premiership side with names who will become Bulldog legends. Ted Whitten, Charlie Sutton, Jack Collins. We returned to the grand final in 1961, only to fall well short of Hawthorn. And we've ridden a roller coaster of emotions ever since, from the foiled merger attempt in 1989 to the 7 preliminary final losses. Fast forward to the end of 2014, and our club is rocked by the captain, coach and CEO departing, leaving us questioning where our club is headed.
It was a bit of a mess for the club.
In the long run, it's going to be a good thing for the club.
Success felt a million miles away, but we've been quietly assembling a litter of talented young pups who are about to find their bite. And in 2016, after decades of disappointment, we've repeatedly defied the odds to end the competition's longest active grand final drought. After 55 years of blood, sweat and far too many tears, we, the Bulldog faithful, return to the big one. We'll be there as the underdog, and we wouldn't want it any other way. They say every dog has its day. Is there one more chapter in this incredible fairy tale? In less than 24 hours, we'll know whether the elusive Premiership Cup is headed for the kennel. Teddy must be beaming. Welcome to the story of the Bulldogs' road to glory. Go Dogs!
It's one of sport's great fairy tales unfolding before our very eyes, and a number of the key players join us tonight. The man who saved the club in 1989, the president, Peter Gordon, the 1990 Brownlow medalist, Tony Liberatore, now known as the father of Tom. Danny Southern, one of the great characters in the history of the club, will join us alongside the 1960 Brownlow medalist. The gentleman, John Schultz, can't wait to catch up, all icons of the Western Bulldogs Football Club. It is going to be a very emotional time in the next 24 hours, and no more so than the captain, Bob Murphy, who gets the DNA of the Western Bulldogs more than any person I've ever met in the history of the club. And as Bob, you sit here tonight, it's a pretty special time.
It is, Darcy. It's impossible not to get swept up in the emotion and the trajectory of the footy club. Love to be here. A
lot of hugs, a lot of tears in recent times. What's your overriding emotion as you sit here 24 hours out from the club's potentially second ever grand final win?
It's a whole mix of emotions, and that's the great thing about footy. But I think the overriding emotions are pride and admiration for our boys who wear the jumper and respect it with so much pride.
Last week's preliminary final, a lot of people, neutral supporters, described it as the best game that they've ever seen. Bulldog people have spoken about it as the night of their life. You're sitting inside that coach's box. It's pretty clinical in there at times, but felt like the emotion was pouring out of the coach's box as well.
It's funny, like it is a bit different in the coach's box to in the outer where it is absolute pandemonium. Because there's a lot of problem solving, a lot of conversations going on about trying to get things right. But as soon as we knew we won, there was a whole lot of emotion, and I've got the privileged position of I sit next to Chris Grant and John Schultz, so to have that lineage of Bulldog history sitting next to you, and then to walk out onto the ground afterwards in front of the faithful, there's only one thing to do.
The final siren sounds. You turn around and it's hugs all round?
Yeah, it was hugs all round. And Chris Grant, I mean, I'm a hugger. Chris Grant's, I don't know if he's as big a hugger as I am, but he grabbed me and he just said, two simple words, that we're there. And that's, when the enormity kind of dawns on you and the history of, how long it's been since we've been at the grand final.
We're going to take a quick look now at the road to the grand final. It is the third time that the Bulldogs have been into a grand final, and they will take on the Sydney Swans at the MCG. And it started with 4 wins in the first 5 games. The Bulldogs had a number of injuries. We'll talk about Murph's injury in round 3 in a moment's time. And then they had a good 3 weeks into round 10. Before round 13, you'd have to say probably the worst performance of the year for the Bulldogs. They came up against a rampaging Cats, and the only real big loss for the year. Bounced back, sensational win against the Swans in round 15. They won 5 of the next 7 games heading to the finals, and then 3 epic finals wins against the West over there, against the West Coast Eagles, the Hawks, the reigning grand finalists, and then GWS into a grand final against the Sydney Swans. Can I take you back, Murph, to round 3? You're having an amazing start to the year, the reigning All-Australian captain. 90 seconds to go. Before I get your thoughts on that, let's go back. We've had amazing inner sanctum access to the Western Bulldogs this year. Let's have a look at what happened in round 3.
If there's something to be gained out of it, maybe it just brings us even closer together, if that's at all possible. We're a very tight-knit group, and this, I think, will just bind them that little bit more. These are traumatic episodes in an AFL player's life, so we'll just need to give Bob and Justine and his family time to process it, and that might be a couple of months. I don't know. So coming back from an ACL or a Rico is a significant recovery process. There's a lot of man love there, between Bob and I, so I'd love him to go on from a selfish point of view. I think everyone at our football club would absolutely want him to drive on, and there's no doubt his teammates will as well. So close. It's so far. No, I gathered you up. Right, but get each other up, because we've got some skills up ahead we need to get. And we've got to get over the fact that Bob's going to need a Rico. That's enormously sad. We've got to find a way to put that in a little box and help inspire us. Right, thanks again for your efforts. Recover well, turn up at the club on Monday, got to be up. Look after each other.
I think the image of your little daughter Frankie just rubbing your knee almost, I'm going to make it better for you, Dad. You look back to that, how do you feel?
It is emotional because you do take a lot of people along for the ride with you, and none more closely than your kids and your wife. When I look back, it does feel like a long, long time ago now, and it was a kind of sad time for me, mainly because I could see where this team was heading. I've played a lot of footy, but I hadn't been captain for very long, and I desperately love that job as being captain. So it was an upsetting time, but I'm not sad now.
Yeah, there's been some amazing hurdles along the way and significant injuries, headed by you in round 3. But if you look back, at the same time, Jack Redpath, season-ending knee injury. We saw Jason Johannesson tear a hamstring. Mitch Wallace with a horrific broken leg who won't obviously play on grand final today. Lin Jong broke his collarbone. There's the Johannesson hamstring that cost him, I think, around about 9 or 10 weeks. A lot of those along the way almost felt like hurdles too big from the outside, but players have just stood up.
Yeah, it's been an incredible year, and I think there's always that deep breath for a footy team and a footy club before round 1 that a footy season will have some drama in it. This one has been something else, though, the severity of the injuries and the dramatic circumstances of it. But this group, this club has always been resilient, but particularly this year has been something else. Overcoming
adversity is something Clay Smith has done. It's an amazing story. 3 knee reconstructions for an early draft pick, and real fears as to whether or not he would be able to fulfil his potential. Kicked 4 goals and a half in a final in the prelim. What an amazing young man.
There's a lot of good stories at our footy club and in our footy team. I don't know if there's a better one than Clay Smith. You and I have done a couple of knees, Luke. I don't think many people can really grasp what it would be to be 21 and have done your knee for the 3rd time and then come back and play the way he has with such heart and such vigour, and then to kick 4 goals in the first half of a prelim is extraordinary. And I'm sure the Swans will be thinking long and hard about what to do with him on Saturday.
I was reading an article you wrote today, back on the 15th of May 2013, and you've written some interesting stuff over the journey, Bob, but this is almost eerie reading that now, just 24 hours out from a grand final, and you spoke about the curse of the Bambino, the famous story of Babe Ruth. Talk us through what you were thinking at that time and that story.
Yeah, it came at a time, and writing a column, you do tend to, look at things in the bigger picture, to take a deep breath, and so much of being in a footy club is about the trajectory, and they were pretty low times for us, and you could see that it wasn't going to get better sooner. And then you start to do the logical thinking of, well, I'm 31, the guys I've played with for a long time are around the same age. I probably haven't got long left in the game. It's not going to happen for me. I'm not going to be a part of the footy club when that happens. And I watched the documentary 4 Days in October of the Boston Red Sox, and having broken the broken that long drought. And I know the games are obviously totally different. It's a long way away, Boston, but you could just easily replace the characters, the people. Sporting clubs they're very, very similar in lots of ways, and it was an ache that I wouldn't be a part of it, and it's kind of gone in a funny direction for me, but I'm desperate for our footy club to experience what the Red Sox got.
That was an 86-year drought between winning championships for the Boston Red Sox. You say in that article that as a Bulldog lover and player and supporter that you often look overseas for other success-starved clubs that break those droughts in an eerie sort of way, and we've seen a lot of it in recent times. The Red Sox not long ago, you think of what the Cleveland Cavaliers did, that was 52 years, and Leicester City in the EPL last year was just a fairy tale. 5,000 to 1 chance they were at the start of the year.
It is. I'm not sure about you, Das, but you kind of find yourself barracking for those clubs and franchises until they win, and then you're kind of filled with that jealousy, I guess, of, oh, wouldn't it be nice to be us? But yeah, there's you don't have to look too far for inspiration.
Amazing time it is for the history of the Western Bulldogs Football Club. And regardless of whether you support the Bulldogs or not, the Bulldogs are encouraging everyone to jump on the Bulldogs bandwagon grand final day. You can tweet a message of support. Head to westernbulldogs.com.au with the hashtag Bulldogs bandwagon. There is room for everyone. Jump on board. Still to come tonight, we are joined at the desk by 2 Bulldog Brownlow medalists in Tony Liberatore and John Schultz. One of the Dogs' great characters, Danny Southern, drops by. And up next, President Peter Gordon talks about how the club has turned around from being a basket case only 24 months ago to potentially winning a flag in under 24 hours' time.
In AFL, the Western Bulldogs.
The Western Bulldogs, who are in crisis tonight after their captain Ryan Griffin quit the club and demanded to be traded to the GWS Giants.
This is nothing short of a disaster for the Dogs, not just the fact that they've lost their best player, but also what it says about the state of the club.
Bit of a concern when the captain wants to walk out, though.
The next question is whether senior coach Brendan McCartney will survive.
Griffin is the 3rd Bulldog to walk out this off-season, following classy forward Sean Higgins and talented young big man Liam Jones. There's also talk Adam Cooney is considering a move.
Brendan McCartney has fallen on his sword after a player revolt plunged the club into crisis.
Macca has made the decision to resign as senior coach of the Western Bulldogs, effective immediately.
The next move that the Western Bulldogs make has to be the right coach, and they've got to get absolutely spot on.
It's often been said that a week is a long time in football. Well, 2 years apparently is a lifetime. Peter Gordon saved the club in 1989 as a very young president, 27 years later and only 24 hours away from potentially a historic second premiership for the Bulldogs. Peter, we appreciate you joining us tonight.
Pleasure, Luke.
Have to start with your jacket. It's a nice look, Peter. Can you tell us the story behind it?
Seth Sargent made this jacket for me in 1989. We were a band of desperados called the Save the Dogs Committee, and we were trying to save the Dogs in the months that led up to, of course, the failed merger. There's only about 10 or 12 of us, and we used to meet every couple of weeks, and Seth had ideas of building a great big merchandising franchise for the Bulldogs, and this is one of the first items off the rack. It's been in my closet for 30 years, but I thought this week I'd pull it out.
Pete, in October 2014, you fronted the media at what was a really difficult time for all of us, and you said it wasn't a crisis. In hindsight, looking back now, was it a crisis?
You know, I remember Luke Darcy's first year at the club having some kerfuffles over Alan Joyce. I don't know if you remember that,
yeah, I do.
Darcy. And I remember getting door-stopped outside as what were you, an 18-year-old, 19-year-old? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember that, yeah.
And being asked about the crisis meeting. And your words were, what do you mean crisis meeting? What's a crisis meeting? And I thought, I can learn a lot from a young bloke. I still remember that occasion.
Yeah.
And when that occurred, I mean, I guess it was a crisis. But a few days later, I read a saying that a crisis unmasks everyone. No one can ever be in control of what they get confronted with, on or off the field. What typifies us or characterises in the end is how we respond to it. And I'm proud of the way the whole club responded to it at that time.
Well, Peter, we might go back to 1996. The Bulldogs opened up their doors to what was at the time an amazing documentary, The Year of the Dogs. So you were president, and I certainly remember this speech very well.
3AW Sport now, and crisis meetings at Footscray today to try and address their shocking start to the season. President Peter Gordon is about to address a full meeting of board and players to discuss the club's problems.
You would have read, no doubt, over the last few days, terms like crisis and terms like, suggestions that the club itself may be in jeopardy. And that's not bullshit. The suggestion that you can lose 2 games by 20 goals and still expect 15,000 people to sign up as members and give you the extra $300,000 or $400,000 you need to get near break even, it's wrong. But really, the time's passed at Footscray Football Club where we solve problems by identifying the one bloke up and getting rid of him. We face this problem together as a team, as a club, by working on it constructively together.
20 years ago, that was Peter Gordon as a very young and very fiery young man. Did you always think that you would be sitting here one day about to go into a grand final?
That might have been the night, by the way, that,
really?
That you actually said that those words. I hoped so, but truthfully, I wasn't at all sure. And it's quite a surreal experience. The whole experience of the last week is amazing to me.
There were a lot of hugs on that night, Murph. No one more excited than Peter, and the effort and time and passion and money and tears that have gone into it. It was just a special time, wasn't it?
It was an amazing game. It was just the most intense experience I think I've ever been through, and it was. People tell me it was a great game. All I remember is just the sheer panic of the last quarter and the uncertainty of the result. And when the final siren went and we were in the grand final, it's still amazing to me.
Pete, I'm a nervous watcher, but I think you may have me covered in
I do have you covered, yeah.
And I know third quarters have been a bit of a problem for you in the last, well, probably forever. How are you going to go tomorrow at the MCG?
It'll be different. I believe I've never been to a Bulldog grand final before, but I believe it'll be different, and it'll be different because, for all of my amazement and for all of my wonder and the whole new experience of it, I believe. Like you do, like Bevo does and like our players do, I believe. And I'm looking forward to the game. I really want the game to take place first, second, third and fourth quarters. I believe in what we can do and I want to be there for it.
Town of Footscray has lit up with colour this week. Yes. Amazing numbers have turned out at training. Pubs have been painted red, white and blue. It's been a really incredible time to drive through a place that is your hometown, Peter. It's as good a time as I can remember.
Yeah, driving to the Whitten Oval these days, every second house is festooned with... some fences have been painted, balloons are up everywhere, slogans are up. There's a terrific bit of graffiti which starts with our Lord Jesus died for our sins and rose again after 3 days, and someone wrote underneath, yeah, but if you can fix Murph's knee by the weekend, then we'll really take some notice.
Absolutely. Wouldn't that be a great thing? Hey, there's a lot of mystique and intrigue around Luke Beveridge. He's now, in his first 2 seasons, been voted by his peers as the Coach of the Year in his first 2 seasons. We shot a piece with Luke Beveridge here on Channel 7 about a bit over a year ago, and a little bit of an insight. Keen to find out from you two what makes the man tick. Let's have a look at the coach, Luke Beveridge.
So this is Bells Beach, the heart of surfing in Victoria, and when we have a day off and the swell's okay, try and sneak down and have a paddle. There's a little bit of stress in senior coaching, but I just really look forward to a surf, so when I get out there I enjoy it. The solitude is a brilliant thing, and I love that at times, and you can have a really flat patch for half an hour or even an hour at times these days, but and then you get a good one, and it probably brings back memories of when you were 15, a bit like a good golf shot. It keeps you coming back for your next round. Oh, life. I've had lots of mentors and lots of role models. Barks was an idol of mine. I was actually a little blonde kid with long blonde hair, and I had the long sleeves and the number 1, and I used to take speckies on Mum and Dad's bed and think I was Barks, or I want to be Trevor Barker. And then when I when I went to the Saints from the Bulldogs at the end of '95, Barks was coaching the twos, and so I struck up a relationship with him, which was special to me. Barks was really sick at the time. He got sicker and sicker, and so I started the year in the twos, and Barks was coaching, and 2 weeks later he passed away. I was an emotional wreck at his funeral because he meant a lot to me. Someone once said to me, what are your dreams? And you must have a dream. I lived my dream, and that was to play the game at the highest level. And if I finished up tomorrow and I walked away, but every one of my players still willing and wanting to have a coffee with me or a beer with me, that's a good test that they've respected and appreciated what you've tried to do for them. To me, it's not the only thing that's important across a broader spectrum, but for me, it's the most crucial thing.
The emotions flow freely out of Luke Beveridge, Bob Murphy. I'm not sure we'll get through the night here ourselves. It feels like that. How would you describe him?
He's like anyone. He's a hard one to describe, but as a leader of our footy club, he connects people and he connects with people. And the emotion that he shows, it's authentic, and he's always authentic. And I'm reminded of the win we had in Sydney 18 months ago when we were just starting out, and we had a great game, a close fought win, and in the rooms after the game he got quite emotional there and told us how proud he was. As a player, or as a group of players, that's all you can ask for. Making your coach proud and him showing the care he has for us, he's got you for life then.
He's unique, isn't he, Peter? You've had a lot to do with him, maybe more than anyone in this journey over the last 2 years. So how do you sum him up?
I made a point of being there for the very first time he met the players and spoke to the players. And I think almost the very first thing he said to them was, I'm an emotional man. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I expect you to too. And I expect us to have that kind of relationship. And it was one of a number of surprising things that you maybe don't expect a coach to say the first meeting with his new group, but he's absolutely true to his word, and it's a key asset, I think.
Peter, it's been fantastic to catch up with you and get an insight. I can see the passion just pouring out of you ahead of what may well be the biggest day of your life. Wish you all the best.
Thanks, Das.
President Peter Gordon, we need to take a break. Two of the Bulldogs' favourite sons join us at the desk next. The 1990 Brownlow medalist and dad of Tom, Tony Liberatore, and the cult hero of the 90s for the Dogs, Danny Southern, are up next. But first, don't miss any of the action on Grand Final Day on the only channel you can watch it. It's live and free right here on 7.
Lasagna is ready, minestrone ready, schnitzel ready for my beautiful Thomas.
It's one of the few things that I keep week to week as a structure, but it's more just for her, and she loves us coming over, and her whole life was built up on wanting food and needing food because she grew up in such a poor area. The love that she puts into food is just something that she wants to, I suppose, just push through us and make sure that we can carry on her legacy in that regard.
I think God bless me with my children still come around and my grandchildren.
I always come over Friday night. It was a bit of a ritual, Friday or a Saturday night, not for a game, and carve up on the lasagna and the pasta, and the meal's the same actually.
Tony's the king. He can't do no wrong, but I'll get there one day.
What a great night it would be at the Liberatore household, and sitting alongside me is the 1990 Brownlow medalist, one of the game's greats and a hero of the Western Bulldogs, now just reduced to being Tom's dad, Liver. That's where you're at.
Correct, mates. Yeah, definitely.
And alongside you is one of the great characters, one of the toughest and bravest players that I've ever seen play the game in over 100 games for the Bulldogs. Danny Southern, good to catch up with you, mate.
Terrific, Das. It's just sensational being in Melbourne and seeing the Dogs on the eve of a historic day, hopefully tomorrow.
I just wanted to ask Tony about, I've privileged to have one of the most wonderful dining experiences of my life at Maria's Place. it's a quick start. It's a soup into a schnitzel into a bowl of pasta very quickly. But at the end of my experience, Maria put a VCR in the TV, and it was a highlights package of yours crackling away. Was that just for my benefit, or is that what every guest gets?
I think every guest gets that. She's incredible. Like, I think there's times we have our feed, and before you've had your soup, the third course has come already on the table. I'm like, Mum, slow down. But yeah, no, the VCR is a bit of a ritual too for all guests.
Maria's pretty vocal at the footy, Libba, so much so that your dad, who passed away a couple of years ago, used to try and sit in the opposite seat as far away on the other side of the ground from Mum. Is that a true story?
True story, yeah. She always had her same seat at Whitten Oval, and Dad would always go on the other side of the ground because he said she was too loud.
Now, Danny, so many stories to talk to you about. I remember arriving the first day in Melbourne with a man who had tattoos and had all sorts of stuff going on. And in your first game, a lot of us were just trying to get a game. You wanted to go over and you wanted to take on the West Coast Eagles. You were from the West. You trained there. They didn't pick you up, and you came over with a bit of an edge to you.
I did have a bit of a chip on my shoulder, Darth. Just looking at the vision here now, it's quite embarrassing, mate. I probably should have taken up MMA, I think. Submitted Suma that night. It was actually really scary. I thought I'd actually killed Suma. I wrapped him up in a sleeper hold, and it cost me 10 grand, so it cost me a majority of my salary for that first year, Darth.
I'm not so sure, mate, because I remember that time very well, and the passion that came out of the heartland of the Bulldogs so much so. People coming up in the street and handing you $20 bills and $50 bills. Is it true that you might have got in front of the 10 grand in the end? Is that?
I think we did make a little bit of an earned arse in the end. It was staggering, and it was just amazing for a young player in his first year. And obviously, as I mentioned before, it was a 10 grand fine. So at the time was a huge sum of money, and the supporters did a tin rattle. I couldn't believe it. There were actually people coming up to me, give me notes in the street, and they were sending the money into the club, so it was actually costing me too much money in postage sending the money back, so slipped a little bit in the pocket and made an earn. So it was actually just amazing. It just shows the spirit of the Bulldog supporters, and going down to watch training on the Thursday, the last training session, was just terrific to see the supporters down there, and a lot of hardship over the years, and just to see the passion and just to see the supporters embrace this week, it's just been sensational.
I was about to ask you about that, Sutho, about the momentum of the footy club and the spirit as you talk about around the Bulldogs at the moment, and you came down to training on Thursday. There does seem to be a lot of past players and a lot of lost Bulldogs sort of coming home. Have you had any experiences with guys you played with or anything like that?
It's actually been terrific, Murph, because I obviously left Australia and lived overseas for about 10 years, so I was away from footy for a long period of time, and just the success that the Bulldogs are having has just been, I guess it's been a great catalyst for uniting some of our ex-players who obviously played in a generation where we got pretty close but never quite good enough to get to that final, dance. But, we gave it a good nudge. But it's been just for myself to be back in the inner sanctum a little bit and just rubbing shoulders with, some of the greats of the game, and that passion. And it's almost, as a supporter now, it's almost more exciting than when you're actually playing and seeing, the next generation, the sons of guns who are, representing the Bulldogs. It's just really ignited that passion back in me, and, it's just terrific to be on the Bulldogs bandwagon at the moment.
As close as we got, Lib, was in 1997, the iconic moment. It was the only quarter for the year that we didn't kick a goal in that season. Or did we, Liver? Because a lot of us standing under that felt that went right through the middle. Can you definitively say, did it go through? You don't celebrate like that, I wouldn't have thought, unless it did.
Yeah, look, I thought it was a goal, but, unfortunately, that's just football, and, I'm just so excited for the boys now they're in the grand final, and I really believe we can win it.
You made up for it, I think, maybe last week, Liver. Watching you on the edge of the seat was just... It was a heart-wrenching, it was a nerve-wracking time, and that's you on the siren. But before that, the ebbs and flows, it was almost impossible to watch you.
Yeah, look, I surprised myself. I was running around like a lunatic. As you can see, I was just hugging Sue, old birdie, who's just been a lifelong supporter of the club, and they were just all the emotion just pouring out of me, and I just couldn't believe it. And, I still can't believe it, but I'm just so excited.
Yeah, with great emotion with you, and to have your son now, Lib, as such an amazing part of the side, and such an incredible player coming back from a serious injury to play with great courage. That's a pretty special time to be with him.
Yeah, look, that was great. Just being in the rooms, sharing that, sharing the love with him, and also with all the other players was something that I'll never forget. But I'm just so excited.
He's got a bit of your DNA, young Tom Lever. He likes to get under the skin of his opponents, and he got right in the face of Heath Shaw, Murph. Is that just you play with him week to week? Is that just what he does?
It's part. I mean, he's he's a Liberatore, so he's got the competitive juices are always flowing. But I think he's taken it to a new level in the final series. He's been huge for us. His influence on his teammates around him because of the way he attacks the ball, but also the way he attacks the opposition is a Liberatore trait.
Yeah, remember in our day too, when we had someone in the gun.
Yeah.
Remember, we used to be ruthless, didn't we? So it's good to see this current crop going through and just being as ruthless as what we were in the day.
Has he surprised you, Libba, by how well he's taken to the game and what he's been able to achieve? He's had a knee reconstruction. He had an injury that I'm told was season-ending for almost any normal young man. He's found a way to come back and play so well.
Not really, Das. I mean, he's always had team first. I mean, that's the biggest thing that I sort of thought I seen when he started playing football. It was he cares about his teammates, and a lot like Murph, just really have a real bond with his teammates and really wants to. It's not about stats. It's all about winning as a group and just a genuine love for his teammates.
Who do you love watching from this current group, Suther? Who's cast in your mould, or who's your favourite?
Clay Smith, I'd have to say, Das. Obviously coming back from those 3 knee reconstructions and just his performance during this final series has just been first rate. Just his attack on the footy and the man, he's just ruthless and, he's going to die out there in the field if he has to. He's sort of going to win at all costs. But, that's as far as the grunty, tough type players. But, seeing Bont and those sort of guys just cruising around, they've got a huge amount of talent. And obviously that's what's got them to the last dance. So, yeah, there's a sensational team.
For what it's worth, I reckon Southo might have been Clay's favourite ex-Bulldogs player. I reckon they've got a fair bit in common. I think I don't mind a bit of a scrap.
There's a bit of that in Murphy. Said something to me after the game on Saturday night that sums up you and the way you feel about the club. But you were really taken by having Danny here and by having Libba and having a lot of ex-teammates that haven't had a reason to come back because there hasn't been a premiership since 1954, and you've had this sense that this is going to galvanise a whole heap of ex-Bulldogs.
Yeah, it is. We don't have the reunions. We don't have the premierships of other clubs. We've got a great history, but yeah, I have noticed with this team and for some reason and what Luke's brought to the club, this team, and in the first elimination final against West Coast, there were a lot of past players, partners. It just had a different feel to it than. I mean, that's not uncommon, but it did have a slightly different feel, and we're getting a lot of, past players back, families back. It's great to have everyone coming home.
I'm with you, so that's almost as though living it through the eyes of our own kids now and all those years later after our time is gone, the emotion is closer to the surface and it almost feels like it means more than it did to us as much as we cared when we were playing.
It does, because I think I just reckon us as a group, as ex-players, we just like to give a lot and just to share that with my son, but also your players, and you feel like we're a real family, and I really believe that, and we own the club in some way. I mean, even past players, and I think this is going to galvanise us, and I think we're going to make history.
And the players love it. The players love seeing ex-players come back. They love the stories. They like sharing the yarns about what it all means.
And Das, on that one as well, I think when you're in the moment, you're a player, you're sort of that focused on your own performance and obviously trying to get to the ultimate stage, but sitting back as a supporter, you can see why footy is such a passionate game and why people embrace it so much. And as a passionate supporter now, it's amazing. It's electric, and the Dogs have just got the whole town barking. It's just terrific.
There'll be a lot of hugs. There's going to be a lot of emotion come final siren on the last day or the first day in October it is this year. Libba, it's been brilliant to catch up with you, Southo. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Pleasure.
Terrific.
Two all-time greats and great characters of the Bulldogs. Stay with us. A very special Bulldog joins us next. The man that might present the cup to a Bulldogs captain for just the second time in history, living legend, 1960 Brownlow medalist John Schultz. He's up next.
Dixon was there. G ran into a head-eye tackle. Smith, I thought, was a little unlucky. Not get a free. Knock off by Stringer. Comes to Dalhouse. Took a bounce. Run down from behind. Still got the handball away. And almighty crash by Smith. Picked up by Daniel. Play of the year from the Western Bulldogs. Ball back inside. Under pressure was Dunkley. As he got the strength of Buster. Went for the fresh area out the middle. Johannesson. He's a lively player. He can run. Here he goes. Racing ball to Bottom Pally. Bottom Pally, no one between he and the goal. Paddles it up. Get back onto his left foot to hit the front. To hit the front. The Dogs are in front by a point. Daniel with the ball in front of goal. Corey's got another. They've kicked it. They've hit the front, the Dogs. Dixon pushed on it. Big pack. centre. Bontempelli's there. Liberatore. McRae's out the back. He'll hit McRae. Haynes gets there. No, it's McRae. Draws breath directly in front to give the Bulldogs the 6-point lead. He's done it. The Dogs are in front by a goal. 40 seconds remaining. Up they fly. If they go inside 50, they've just about done it. The siren will sound. A 55-year drought ended. The Dogs are in the grand final. What about that? 20,090 days since the Dogs have done history.
It was 55 years ago the last time the Bulldogs played in a grand final. In 1961, John Schultz was the reigning Brownlow medalist, and you will not meet a more humble champion in any form of life. And the great John Schultz joins us tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Luke. It's great to be here.
John, great to have you here. I want to take you back to 1961 in the grand final, our last grand final that we were in, where we unfortunately lost to the Hawks, and just your memories of that day and some stories about perhaps why it didn't go our way.
Well, it's one of those lifetime experiences. One of the things that I recall vividly is running down the race. So I think there were 107,935 people there. And it was just like hitting the ground. It was like running into a brick wall. Just the sound, the noise. And I think there's going to be 100,000 there on Saturday. And the same thing's going to happen to the boys when they run down or go out to run through the banner. But we were playing Kennedy's Commandos. They hadn't won a premiership to that point, and they were super fit. I think they were 10 years ahead of their time as far as fitness of the game at that time. And we were very naive in those days as far as what you require to sort of have peak performance. And I know that it had been instilled into me that you dried out. You didn't drink a lot of fluid because if you did that, you could get cramps and things like that. So we were a bit dehydrated, and on the day it was, in today's terminology, over 30 degrees. It was over 100 degrees and a very hot day. And we were ahead at half time, but because they were super fit and we were a fast flowing side, but they just kept crunching us at the stoppages, and they wore us down. So by half-time we were in the rooms, and the selectors and Ted, who was our captain coach, were looking at the team and they're thinking, oh, we're in trouble here because of the way the team was looking.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing? You didn't drink water back in 1961, and who would have thought that
I'm leaving here to fill up the drink bottles.
Make sure that's not going to be an issue.
They're on and off all the time now with the drink bottles. They have people running out, and you can see the reason for it.
You mentioned the great EJ, no more historic figure in the history of the club than the great EJ. You were great friends, very different characters. EJ was larger than life, and Brash, tell me a bit about your friendship and a bit about the great EJ, who was centre-half back in the 54 premiership.
Yes, well, I think Ted really sacrificed his game to a certain extent. Like, if you looked at the game at the time, when he first started, he was centre-half back, and he was a tremendous centre-half forward. And if he'd stayed there, I think he would have had more accolades than he has now. But he went into the ruck rowing situation, and I was the ruck, because he needed to be around the ground with the players at every contest. And he was a big influence on the game. He was tremendous to me. I started in 1958, and I can remember I made the state side, and Ted at centre-half forward for the state side in 58. As soon as he got the ball, he made sure he passed it directly to me. I was resting in the forward pocket, and he hit me on the chest, and it was specifically to get me settled in, you know.
Yeah.
And he did that all through my career. He was always looking after me. I felt that he was a big brother, you know. He was looking at, and he did it with all his teammates. He looked after everyone.
John, we talked about EJ, and the great thing about footy clubs is the link between the old and the new. You shared a plane ride home with Marcus Bontempelli, who has got a little bit of EJ about him. Can you tell us about Marcus and the time you've spent with the players the last few years?
Yes, well, it's been my fortunate experience to be around the playing group for the last 2 seasons, and I've treated it as a learning experience, and I've sort of intently looked at and tried to get to know all the people, whether it be players or support staff, coaches. I've just been observing, and it's a wonderful feeling that Luke Beveridge has engendered in the team and the support staff. He's a wonderful person as far as embracing everyone and getting them all together and working on the same field, and it's a wonderful feeling around the club. You talk about the players, say Bonty, but he's a star, but there's other players that are equally as important to the club, and they all step up. And even if you look at we had the VFL boys who won a premiership last Sunday, and they've been called on during the year because we've had horrific injuries toll, and they've been called on to sort of fill the breach, and they've stepped up and performed their role and kept us in the race. And so now we've got pretty well a full team. We're missing Wally, and we're missing this man, and Marcus Adams, and there's a few like that would be in the side probably, but who do you put out?
That's right. Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's an amazing time, Bob, for the club. Even our banners are cool now. Everything about the Dogs is good, and there's a man behind it called Danny McGinlay, who's a lifelong Bulldog supporter. He's been out during the week making the Bulldogs banner. Let's have a look.
I was about 6 or 7 years old, and my parents were migrants, came to Australia, and I asked for a footy jumper, and Mum didn't know any of the teams or anything. She went down to Kmart and bought the cheapest one, and so I was a Bulldog for life. A few times in my life I've always pondered if Mum had just reached over and paid an extra $2 for a Geelong jumper, it would have been better. But for every hardship, it just makes the good times so much sweeter. I see footage of this every year for, the Hawks or the Magpies or all the other teams. To see it with the red, white and blue, it's so gorgeous. Look at the excitement and the joy on all these people's faces. You've got people who were there in 1954 through to, my son's 2, but he still waited his whole life for this. It means so much for the community. It's just such a beautiful story. No matter how much hardship you've got in your life, it would just be a spike of joy that we can hang on to for the rest of eternity.
Go Doggies!
Everyone loves an underdog, and that's what we are. We are the Western Bull Underdogs.
He's been in great riding form, Danny McGinlay. He's a great stand-up comedian, and you can see the passion he has for the clubs. And the Banners have had a bit of an edge this year, Murph. I get the feeling he's a man after your own heart. There's been a couple of nice little gentle whacks at the opposition.
It has been one of those nice little bonuses of when we run out to play, and the guys who are a little bit more relaxed can have a quick look up and soak them in. But they're the cult hero of their own.
Yeah, it's been great. Look forward to what happens at the MCG tomorrow with Danny McGinlay riding the banner. Johnny, you've had an amazing life. You're a Brownlow medalist in 1960, a living legend of the club. Tell me about the day you met the Queen.
Well, that was one of the highlights, wasn't it? I was...
For the Queen too.
I was asked by the Sir Kenneth Luke and Eric McCutcheon if I'd be prepared to do what I did with in explaining the game to the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh. And there was Ross Smith and Ross Dillon, who were also there with Prince Charles and Princess Di. And it was they'd just been introduced to the Fitzroy and Richmond with a team that were being introduced to them, and then after they'd been introduced, they came up into the stand. They arrived at half-time, and they'd been listening to the game. They were in their open car coming around through the crowds. It was a big thing in those days for the royal family, and crowds were lined up and they were listening to it, and there was a melee just before half-time, and Princess Anne was going through, and she said to Billy Barrett, "Oh, do you think there might be another melee sometime?"
Wanted to see another fight, the royal family.
He wanted to see another fight, but they came up and sat down, and it was very interesting. I just thought I'd explain as much of the game as I could in the time that I had.
And you would have done it better than anyone possibly could have, John. It's always a great pleasure to be in your company, and perhaps tomorrow you'll be presenting the second ever Premiership Cup to Easton Wood as the Bulldogs captain. Let's hope it happens.
That would be a thrill of a lifetime.
The great John Schultz, one of the gentlemen of the game, and fantastic to have time with him. Time for a break now. Next, we get the final word from Bob as we look forward to a history-making day for the Dogs tomorrow. But don't forget, all the NFL action is right here on Channel 7.
Last week, the respect and trust that you would have built just on the back of 1 week, let alone what you've done previously, it's really powerful. Really, really powerful. The players do feed off some inspiration, and normally that inspiration is so much more powerful when it comes from within. When I arrived at the football club, maybe we were devoid of a little bit of inspiration, but pretty quickly we started to find it. We started to leverage off our own story, and a big part of this year is continuing the journey and talking about ourselves internally more than anything else, and I think there's nothing more powerful than that. Everything you do for each other, you inspire each other, and it's an extension of that, you know how much you inspire other people. Let's go.
Yeah, really grateful to Luke Beveridge, who has opened up the inner sanctum right throughout the year and allowed us inside what has been a remarkable fairy tale. Bob Murphy, as we sit here on the eve of the grand final, what's been the surprising thing for you this week?
A little bit about what we talked about old players coming back and the goodwill of players coming back. But the size of our footy club, the sort of wave you feel underneath has been, which is almost obvious, but if we got ourselves into this situation, but I think it's far bigger than any of us could have comprehended. And even at lunch this week at training, the players were chatting, and as is the way these days, we were passing a video around, and it's a video of yourself, but I do think it captures a bit about the emotion surrounding this team at the moment. I'd like to show the viewers right now.
Over the hand of Boyd to Stringer. Stringer can go all the way. He kicks to the middle, and Dixon marks. I think the Dogs are going to get there now. 15 on. I've been wanting to say this for as long as I can remember. The Bulldogs goes through to a grand final. Can you believe it? The siren will sound. A 55-year drought ended. The Dogs are in the grand final.
It's said we wouldn't get through the night, Murph, and we just about lost it. You've got to keep it locked on Channel 7 because we've got your whole weekend covered, all of the live and free action right here. The Friday Front Bar Grand Final Special is up next. The final draw, Pete Dixon's doco, Murphy, is an absolute ripper on the last draw. Make sure you see that incredible story that is. And then it's the Toyota Grand Final Marathon. How else do you celebrate tonight than the marathon? And as we said, then all the action starts, and we kick off very, very early, live and free on Channel 7, building up at Grand Final at Fed Square. And come down to Fed Square on the morning of the Grand Final tomorrow morning. Thanks to NAB, we're going to be giving away 2 Grand Final tickets to the 2016 Toyota Grand Final, asking fans to dress up in their club colours, and the most passionate fan will win tickets. Get to Fed Square at 9 a.m, loads of special guests, a free sausage sizzle. That's all thanks to Woolies, so they will be the hottest tickets in town. Hey Murph, without hoping to sound condescending, I just feel like we're all proud of you, mate, the way you've handled yourself your entire career, but especially now.
Thanks, comrade. It's a big day, but I'm so proud of our footy club.
It is a big day. It starts with sunrise, 7 a.m. at Fed Square. Game day with Hamish and the team, the Toyota pre-game show, Lingy, Sam Lane, Richo, Mick Malloy, and then the Toyota AFL Grand Final for 2016 featuring the Sydney Swans and the Western Bulldogs. But right now, this is a very special show. It's the Friday Front Bar. You're going to catch up with the team. Andy Marr, Mick Malloy and Sam Payne. Big thanks to Bob Murphy. Good luck tomorrow. It's the Swans and the Bulldogs. Friday Front Bar is up next. Don't miss it.